Good afternoon, Sean here, Mountains Garage. In the very toasty state of Maine today. It's actually kind of warm here in the shop, although it feels like a cave when you walk in from the outside. It's 90 plus outside and it's 71 or 2 inside. So that 20-degree delta feels pretty good when you walk in. After you've been inside for a few minutes, well, it starts to feel kind of sticky. I had the fan going and the radio going, and then I got the bright idea to shoot a video on the case prep, if you will, of a brand new Reid SH400 case. They come with some of everything you need to get it ready to start assembly. The beauty right off the bat is I took it out of its protective cardboard box, out of its protective plastic bag, and I blew it off. I hosed it down with carb cleaner and all the different orifices and blew it out with air. It's perfectly clean. I do that every time because I need to check that off in my mind that it's clean, because I wouldn't want to have a random piece of aluminum filing, foul something up at the end. So it's a necessary step, but in every case with one of these so far, unnecessary. If I was out, in a pile of speedy dry in the desert and had to assemble this transmission, you'd probably get away with it. So what else is in the box with the Reid case? The SH400 in this case. They also make an off-road version. Instructions. 1/2 a page, it's blank on the other side. Detailed, everything you need to know to do everything we're going to do today anyway. A new intermediate clutch pressure plate, as you notice, is lugged all the way around. There's no void in this case. A new intermediate clutch snap ring, super heavy duty, really nice stuff. This is a plug. I'm going to take you back over here for a minute. For the driver's side dipstick provision, you actually put the aluminum plug in, and a little set screw kind of sits over the edge of the hole just to keep it from falling out. Some people make an electrical pass-through there if you're going to have a lock-up torque converter or extra wiring that this one won't handle. You can incorporate that one also. Peek inside the case. We have lugs 360 degrees. No need for a case saver. They give you a Super Duty snap ring. Good stuff. Back over here, they give you all the plugs. There are a lot of extra plugs you need to install. I assume they needed them for machining purposes, plus it allows you to tap into pressure points where you could not before. That is a filter spacer, like it says, because the pan rails are 1/4 inch thicker, lower than a stock Turbo 400. Stock Turbo 400, these would be on the same plane, the maze here and the side, the pan rail. As you can see, they're not. So you need to take that into account when you calibrate your dipstick. And they give you a 1/8 inch screw-in vent. If you were going to run that style vent, of course, we're probably going to have a catch can. We're definitely going to have a catch can, I hope. And they also give you the rear thrust bearing upgrade, a TH350 pump bearing. And they give you a 10 thousandths shim. And the instructions tell you that their design point and the machining point is to have that fit perfectly with a 10 thousandths shim. Of course, we'll check it, but so far they've been right on. I have yet to do a weight comparison between this ballistic, because it's explosion proof, super heavy duty, really thick case, and say a stock Turbo 400 with the bell housing cut off. That would be interesting. Nothing you could do about it. It's just purely, something to know, because this is a massive single rib down the backside. They do a really nice job of telling you, like, for instance, unlike most Turbo 400s, these are tapered pipe thread instead of straight thread. They give you like a little screw hole for the ground. Actually, this one's for the ground per the instructions, because that would be your modulator clamp, or in this case, if you have an external trans brake solenoid, it would be right there. So they give you a screw right there, so you could put a ground wire to it, and also one from the chassis, I guess, if you wanted to. Always a good idea to have extra grounds. It is just massive. I love that, you know, the Bellhausen bolts on, kind of like late model stuff. Not using the pump bolts. It takes an 8-bolt pump. Just a beautiful piece. Comes with the rear case bushing installed, offset toward the front a little bit to capture the bearing, like I always do when I change them. You know, in stock cases. Just a fabulous piece. Did I mention no cleaning, other than, you know, I mentioned blowing it off. No scraping, washing, painting. It really is, there's some economy in that. We'll discuss that at the end. Between Reid and other aftermarket companies, you can buy a bolt-on Bellhausen to put this behind almost any engine you can think of that's popular. Some that probably aren't popular. You know, want to put it behind a Hemi? Buy a Bellhausen. Coyote, Ford motor? Buy a Bellhausen. You name it, it's out there. And if you remember, maybe you don't, I did a video comparing the JW Alto Bell, the ATI bolt-on Bellhausen, and the BTE Bellhausen. And the BTE was the only one of the three that had an adapter ring that went from the pump bolts to this pattern. While I haven't done it, it's outside. I could go get it, unbolt the adapter ring, and it is supposed to bolt right on here. So if you run the BTE aftermarket Bellhausen, which I do, I like it. It comes with, you know, the LS bolt hole on the top. It's a nice piece, in my opinion. And you want to upgrade later on, which I do. I'd love to have one of these cases to call my own someday. You can just unbolt your adapter ring and bolt it right on here. What it doesn't come with is everything required to put the shift linkage and have the park position function. I source everything when I do a Reid case from ATI. I'm sure there might be somebody out there, you know, providing all these parts, but ATI has done a great job. Probably for their own cases that they sell their own super case. But, you know, these are all OEM replacement stuff. And everything you need. You need the rooster comb, the guide, the pocket pawl rod. In this case, I got a Sonic shift shaft. You need the pocket and pawl, the pin and clip that go through the case. Now the Reid case already has a pipe plug in the case, where your factory TH400 has a cup plug. I've tapped them out to 1/8 inch pipe, but in this case, Reid's already done the work for me, so I can just install that. And of course the spring. And you're still on your own to find the correct finish nail, which that is. I just took it out of that transmission I stripped yesterday. Of course, right next to it, the center support bolt. All these small parts you don't really think of, they have to come from somewhere. You know, if you take them out of a transmission, that case that is, you know, junk, that's one thing. Every time I junk out a case, in fact, the other day I gave a Turbo 400 with a deep pan on it and a Tailhausen, all cleaned up to use for a dummy for welding in motor mounts and transmission mounts to a buddy of mine who does fab work. He mentioned he had a need for it, and I actually had 3 of them because I don't throw anything away, if you know me. So I gave him one. I got it to his house and I rattled it around, and remember, I hadn't taken the pocket pawl and the pin and clip out of it. And I was able, using a few tools on his floor, to pop it out. My method to do that is I take the clip out the inside, use a screwdriver to shove that back. It pops out the pipe plug, the cup plug on the outside, not a pipe plug, drive-in cup plug. And was able to salvage the whole thing in a few minutes. So I have a complete used setup as well, but for a brand new case, you're gonna have to find all these parts. No, I'm not finished yet. This Reid case transmission that I finished, 2 months ago, I guess, a month and a half ago. I used the Reid roller tail housing as well. You know, cosmetically it's average. It's really expensive, about 250 bucks. So for the one I'm doing today, I went with the BTE roller tail. It's a really nice piece, all solid, and it's about half price. So it's not an area of great concern. I'm sure it's plenty strong. I'm not sure which one would win if you put them, you know, in some kind of side-by-side comparison, but cosmetically it's actually a little prettier. Starting in the back in no particular order, I've accomplished a few things. I went ahead and bolted on the BTE roller tail housing. I will fill the roller bearing and the seal with lube before I actually put in the lower unit. The reason why I went ahead and put the tail housing on is because there's no reason not to. The governor cover is just going to block the hole. I've already put a freeze plug in where the speedometer would be. There's a nice recess that stops it on the Reid case. This is the part number. It is 1 15/16 if you want to plug off the speedometer. I put in the complete shift and parking linkage. You can see the clip and the pin for the pawl. This is the correct direction for the park pawl spring. The square end goes toward the case. New grade 8 5/16 bolts. This is the 1/4 inch pipe plug that Reid uses to seal the pinhole for the parking pawl. On a stock case, I have successfully tapped that 1/8 inch. I don't believe I'd dare to go 1/4 inch, but I never tried. Make sure your linkage works nicely. And it does. This is an inside view of the alternate dipstick plug. If you want to run a driver's side dipstick, they also warn you there's a 1/2 inch difference compared to stock. As far as your level mark goes, you have to kind of catch the washer and screw offset to hold it in. There's an O-ring on the plug, and of course I put a little Loctite on that screw. I forgot to mention I put a double Loctite on each of the grade 8 3/8 16x1 flange head bolts that I held the tail housing on with. For both the speedometer plug and the electrical pass-through, which is the brass plug. This is the part number for the brass plugs. I just realized I'm out of them. I take a little bit of clear RTV on my finger. I wipe it around the hole, and I drive the plug in, and then I wipe up what very little mess is left over. You only need a microscopically thin amount because it's a press fit. There's no sense putting a 1/4 inch bead on there. You're just going to have to clean it up. The shift shaft seal, I drive into the case dry, but of course I lube the shaft when I put it together. And on the outside there's 4 1/8 pipe plugs. This is your typical pressure port that you see on a stock Turbo 400. And over here, that is not on the stock Turbo 400, and neither are those two. But that's where they go if you're not going to use them for anything else. And don't forget the finish nail that holds the linkage from going this direction. If I was to flip the case upside down, it could fall out. But I'm not going to bend it, because that way, if I bend it, it can actually fall out with the pump in. It's made so it would hit the pump and can't come out. If you bend it, it can come out. If you're servicing the seal in the car, you have to bend it to get it out. Please stop bending my nail. All right, we're done for today. It's too hot in here. I had to shut the fan and the radio off, and it's just about to thunder, lightning, and potential high winds again. 3rd time this week. We had tree damage a week ago Tuesday. Monday night there was tornado warnings. And now, today, they said bad, severe, I guess is the word, thunderstorms. If this video looks a lot like a Reid case video I did back in April, I was asked to go into a little more detail about all the small pieces, so this was an excellent opportunity to do that. So that's what it was all about. You know, where I put sealer, Loctite, details. People love details. I love details. So much so that, yes, I mark each of these freeze plugs, core plugs, whatever you want to call them, with a Sharpie, the direction I want, either up or down, depending on which way I have the case. So when I put them in, the part number reads correctly. That's just the way I am. And I forgot to mention the brass one for the electrical kick down pass through is 7/8. I write it right on the box so I remember. I had just 2 of these left and now I have 0. So I need to reorder those. I like to keep a stock of everything. It costs a fortune to have all the small hardware available. Another video we should talk about, I get asked a lot, is, you know, the cost of everything. It certainly hasn't got any better. For instance, this transmission, it just happened to work out. I was either gonna, I have a lot of parts around, but I want the premium stuff for this particular one, and a gentleman that I've met through my channel is sourcing a lot of cores where he lives, halfway across the country, and I'm buying, you know, the premium internal parts from low mileage Turbo 400s. And the difference between, it's more expensive than me going to go buy a core. I'll buy all the cores I can find. However, you have to find them, drive to and from. When I'm doing that, I'm not here working in the shop. And you never know what's inside. It's like a box of chocolates, like yesterday's transmission. You don't know what you're getting. If I'm buying parts that are somebody else has done all that work, yes, it's worth a premium. I love these people that comment online, you know, I paid $50 for one of those and that's all they're worth. Well, I'll buy all I can for that. I got lucky on the 2 TH475s a couple months ago for $75 a piece, but that doesn't happen very often. Around here, it's $200 to $400 for a core minimum, and you don't know what's inside. So I am paying not necessarily a premium price, but the whole box of parts showed up yesterday. I busted them out and I got half of them prepped to put in here already. So, you know, this is not a cheap transmission to start with. I wanted some really nice parts, and that worked out. Unplanned, but it worked out. So that's that. I'm going to get back up to the house, I think, before I get stranded out here in the thunder and lightning. And I'll catch you in a couple days.